All right, I really thought I was done with Villalva week, but then both Villalva and his opponent in this game, the incredibly skilled Piggyman, both messaged me that this was a really interesting game he had played and I should take a look. So I haven't actually looked at the game yet, except that Villalva sent a few messages and I said I'd look at them, but I had not looked at them yet. Um, and so we'll get to them, or had not looked at them with any real thinking. We'll get to them because they're all commentary after the position on move 5. So I will read what he said then, and we'll look at the game. This was for Tezuka's hand tourney, where people were supposed to make Halloween-based hands. Sadly, you cannot see the graphics here, so we can't see how beautifully creepy these hands were. But if you look at these hands and think, that's a strange hand to build, I wonder what the stipulations were. The limitation, I believe, there may have been some level ones, but primarily was just pick cards that fit together and have a nice spooky vibe. So you'll notice in Piggy's hand, there's 3644, which I believe is a level 3, 7174 is a level 5, 8736 and 1785 I think are both 6s, and 6927 is an 8. So that looks to me like it's a total level of 28. Villalva's hand, on the other hand, we have a level 8. So we're at 8. Then we have 5461. Is that a level 2 or a level 3? 5252 is definitely a level 2. We'll say a 3 and a 2. We're up to 13. Then a level 6, we're up to 19. And about a 6 or a 7. Either way, Piggy's hand is slightly higher level. And, presumably is going to be a little more powerful due to that. But again, we're going to see some synergies with the hands, so I don't want to go too in depth. But the hands, Piggy has 2 cards where their best corner is 7. Villalva has 2 cards where their best corner is 7, right? These are not going to be fully balanced, perfect hands, but they're also going to make for a really neat game, and I think they put stuff together. And our game begins with 5461 in 5. And I think in randoms, starting in 5 is pretty dangerous in general. I think in hand games, starting in 5 can often be built with the hand. But in a game like this, where the cards are not so much stronger than a random, where they're not fitting that perfectly together, 5 tends to be a dangerous square unless you've really found some nice things to connect. So I think this is probably not the most pressuring move available, but I think there are also, it looks to me like there are some synergies. The first thing I notice is this potential corner where 7834 has both sides of it. That seems potentially quite nice. I suspect there are other synergies here. That's the one I'm spotting. There's also, not that. There's also 5252 here. Also sets up 7834 in both squares quite nicely. 7834 already has the plus wall from below, which makes it easier to do things. And there may be other tools here that I'm missing. One thing I want to say is, generally speaking, when you're playing a center setup hand, especially on these multi-level sets, is you want the low-level cards to be your corners, right? You'd much rather play this as a corner than play a big number as a corner. Because if you play this as your corner, and let's pretend that 5252 was our recapture, of course it isn't, but let's pretend it was, then you have to hold on to a really weak card until the end game, and it is unlikely to have power in other directions. So it may perfectly cover these 2 cards, but it likely won't cover the card here or here, and it's also a card you're stuck with late, and if they find a clever time to occupy one, say you have this Q, and they grab this, then suddenly, if this card doesn't go here immediately, if we play in the normal square, we might get left with this as a dead card because it doesn't actually get the spot it needs. And more powerful cards are more likely to have the versatility to be able to play in other spots as well. So I think in general, when you have one of these corner setup hands, you want to make sure the setup cards are your weaker cards, and the power cards, or your finishers, are the cards that you're holding on to longer. I guess I don't really have more thoughts on the starter yet. I think Piggy smartly uses one of his weakest cards. There's a case as second turn he plays here. There's a case for second turn not looking to do something like this, because you're not going to have to use up all your cards. It can be worth just saying, okay, my low level card, I'm just never playing it, and I'm going to play with the other 4. But I do think if you can find a good way to use it, it gives you a little more versatility later in the game, because you have better cards to choose from rather than them only having to play against one of your cards because another card in your hand is dead. And in general, low-level cards have more value early in the game than late, because late is the time when you're really going to need to have multiple captures or have the threat to capture, and the low levels often won't be able to do that. Well, early in the game, you might be setting up synergies or setting up a corner, or trying to direct the game in a way that's uncomfortable for them, and low-level cards have more ability to do that and will prove a bigger hindrance kind of the longer you hold on to them. This move finds a way to use the low level, and I see clearly creates a problem, right? We clearly have the fact that there is no capture from 3. And so this is definitely going to be a move that is somewhat difficult to face. And it also has a clear plan to build out. If Villalva plays something like a distant corner, then Piggy suddenly has immediate safety and is probably playing to win. Now, this position might not be so bad. There are potentially a number of ways to try to hold this, but this is clearly going to be a position where Villalva has to be careful in the end game. Piggy basically already has 2 locked-in cards, and yeah, it's going to be tough for Villalva to do something about that. My instinct is that maybe one of the Z's holds. Which one's more likely to hold? Probably this one, because the 7-8-3-4 can plus that 6 facing up, maybe. If it goes in 7. Maybe not, though. I'm not sure. Yeah, this looks very unappealing. I wouldn't want to go into this. So we have a problem. Piggy has sort of created a half safety. He's a card that will be safe given another turn, and when he does lock it in, he immediately grabs another card. So this is a really threatening move. I think this is a really nice reply. And if I was in Villalva's shoes here, I would feel pretty worried. I'm not... Yeah, I don't know what I'd do here. I have seen the actual move because it was the only sensible way to get to the position that was reached on move 5. I haven't really hidden the game from myself. I've just not looked into it. But I can see the problem here. There's not... Piggy's just going to have 2 free cards, and there's not really a way for Villalva to get any. So... there are certainly moves that could be played in 7, 8, or 9. If you want to inconvenience a move in 3... in 1... then most likely you'd like to play in 7. But I think 7's pretty unappealing here. We know this is a good setup move in general, right? We know this move sets up Villalva's hand quite effectively. But I think here it's just unlikely to work. First of all, you do not control the move in 1. Second of all, you still have this left problem. Like, maybe just this, right? Like, Piggy could play 1, and this looks really dangerous, but he can also play here and still have 1 ready to go later. And Villalva can't block 1 this turn because playing in 1 in this setup makes no sense at all. So it's pretty easy to imagine this position getting dark. And here's where we start to reach creative moves from Villalva, who has been the star of this week and has played really interesting, enterprising triple triad. And I guess I'm going to go on a vaguely my philosophy of triple triad rant, and part of the reason I tend to focus on concrete moves and calculation rather than vaguer moves. If you go, say, here, which, you know, maybe or maybe doesn't tie against this move, you have to kind of check, can I reply to 3? Can I reply to 1? Can I reply to 8? Do they have some clever setup in 6 where they can then combo back or are potentially safe immediately, right? There are so many squares to check, and sometimes they do a cool combo setup move in 7 as well. They basically never play 4, and even when they do play 4, which in an equivalent but rotated structure Akiyama did against me recently, it's never really going to be a winning try. It was a try that did a really nice job of cutting off my initiative, and he ended up getting a tie. But it's never going to be dangerous. You don't really have to check it. And if it is the only tie and they find it, kudos to them. But it's not something you have to worry about. But there's so many squares to worry about that I think J's are kind of just complex, difficult positions to play for both players. And in this case, it's probably pretty easy for Pig because he takes easy safety. So Villalva has to see that, also check if there's other dangerous things, and then find something worthwhile in a position after this. And that's so hard to do, right? A move in 7, 8, or 9 has to be good against a whole set of options. And 7, 8, and 9 are kind of the structurally correct moves. They're the moves that don't give your opponent a free way to lock something in. But they require checking so many things that I think mostly they're going to be achieved by checking a few things and having a really nice feel for how they work. Moves in 1 and 3 are kind of structurally not so good, but only need to work in one line, in one way. And so Villalva plays in 1. This is a very interesting move. So we have a number of pretty obvious things for Piggy to do. And my initial thought looking at this would be, this looks kind of ridiculous. One is, Piggy can just lock in. This is dangerous though, because we flip that card in 5, and that combos back that card in 2. And so, if Villalva has a good setup move, Villalva could be in good shape. Now, the problem is, I don't really think he can go here. One reason, and I think the main reason, is probably Piggy just combos back. No, this looks like a tie, because you can just go in 7 and you're going to flip enough cards. Yeah, you're going to flip enough cards. So probably going in 7 first. Probably this way. And this, I think, should be a win. Yeah, importantly, the 1, 7, 8, 5... If you go in 3, 1, 7, 8, 5, and 6 is going to be a win. And if you go somewhere else, I think 1, 7, 8, 5 dominates the other squares too. So you can't take the combo immediately, which you wouldn't expect to be able to, but just wanted to prove that you couldn't. Which means probably, if there's a tie here, I bet it's this. Or if there's a win even. Because we did have that setup, and we saw Villalva's hand was ready to do this, which was really neat from the setup. But we're going to need that combo on 5 to have any chance to play here. And I'm not sure what the... well, I'll just have the computer tell me. Alright, so this move does tie. And Piggy has 2 ways to tie here. He has to block 8. That makes a lot of sense. And I probably should have gotten to that. Though it's hard, just speaking extemporaneously and seeing everything. But logically, blocking 8 makes a ton of sense. Why? Villalva has combos in both 6 and 8. That means you cannot go in 3 or 9 because usually, in this case I think is the case, you cannot go in 3 or 9 because Villalva will play in the other of 3 or 9 and he will have the combo in 6 or 8 on the final turn. So you must block 1 of 6 or 8. Piggy has the combo in 3 but not in 7. So you want to block 8 so that if Villalva counter combos in 6, Piggy has the combo in 3, right? If you start in 6, it's true that if Villalva counter combos in 8, you still have 3, but Villalva has 3, the square you'd want, right? We're trying to do the one that leaves open the square we have good play in between 3 and 9. Piggy has much better play in 3 than 9, so it makes sense to block 8. Because generally in these queues, we have these sort of paired squares. 3 is paired with 6, 7 is paired with 8. If someone goes in 1, the response is quite commonly going to be in the other. Of course, there's a secondary pairing as well, and we saw that if Piggy goes in either 3 or 9, Villalva goes in the other, because 3 and 9, as well as 6 and 8, are secondary pairs. But 3 and 8, as well as 6 and 7, are basically never paired. Very rarely do they end up being paired in how they work. So if you don't want them to play in a square here, you play in the square least paired with it. If you don't want them to play in 3, you want 3 left open for you, 8 is a way to do so. If you really want to play in 7, playing in 6 is a way to do so. If you really want to play in 6, start in 7, and 6 will very likely be left open. So here we have to block 1 of 6 or 8. We have more play in 3 than 9, so it makes sense to go in 8. Just on kind of general principles. Interesting position. Okay, so capturing here is quite scary for Villalva to handle, but it does look like his hand has enough combo synergies ready to go that this Q is pretty favorable because Piggy has, not favorable, but this Q survives because Piggy has to has to capture 5 to capture his card. Really complicated move. Really seeing, yes, you can lock my card in, but my card in 1 is weak to 2, 2 is weak to 5, I have play against 5, I can set up dangerously against that. But there's another obvious move for Piggy to make, and this is the one that Piggy actually makes, which is to take safety in 3. I have the card in 3, I have the card in 2. As long as I don't flip 5, and note, Villalva has very little combination ability on 5 at this moment. 7, 8, 3, 4 has 8, but that's not enough. Just 1 square is pretty easy to work around. This looks great. Piggy has 2 locked in cards, which we saw in a lot of lines where Villalva went like here, and Piggy went here. You know, this kind of line looked very dangerous, and Piggy has achieved something very similar. Piggy, in general, was specifically threatening to block here rather than here, because if he blocked here, Villalva would have the capture, but Villalva has now covered that side for him, so 1, 7, 8, 5 works just as well in 3 as it did in 1. And this just looks to me like this really visually enormous advantage for Piggy, right? There's these 2 safe cards, but here's some worries. It is very hard for Piggy to play around the card in 5 without flipping it. He has 1 card that can do so in 8, he has 1 card that can do so in 6, and he has no cards that can do so. Sorry, he has 1 card that can do so in 4, he has 1 card, the same card, that can do so in 8. So 7174 is likely to be a critical card for him. And he has no card, sorry, I keep saying the numbers wrong. He has 1 card in 4, 1 card in 6. It's the same card, 7174. He has no cards that can do so in 8. So it's going to be hard for him not to at some point flip 5. If he does flip 5, suddenly the whole board is vulnerable. And Villalva has his 2 setup moves, right? Villalva has 6, 9, 5, 5, and 7, and 5, 2, 5, 2, and 9. And this is kind of the brilliance of the move in 1, is he has setups that are really good in 7 and 9 if 5 ever flips. Now, we do need 5 to flip, but it's really hard to avoid flipping 5, and because 5 overpowers 2 and 2 overpowers 1 and 3, if you can get the right synergies on it and force the flip of 5, you can get this absolutely crushing position. So what Villalva plays is he has these 2 options, and I have checked with the AI, so I know how they both work at this point, but or at least I know the result. I haven't figured out why, so we'll be figuring out together, but I don't want to spoil it for you, the viewer. He has these 2 moves, this setup in 7 and this setup in 9. Villalva makes the one I think is really logical to play, which is he uses his lower level card here. I will say, every move except these 2 loses. You know, this position looks really good for Piggy. It is no surprise that 13 out of 15 moves lose here. The question is, do these 2 remaining moves also lose? Do they tie? Is there a chance to win this position? Because it's very specific, right? This is not kind of strategic in the sense of like who can lock in more cards. The question is, does 5 flip and can I do something with it? 5, 2, 5, 2, and 9. Fascinating move. Really terrifying move. And here's the problem. If Piggy goes somewhere like here, I assume 6, 9, 5, 5 is just game over because Villalva has the combo and it just flips everything, right? If we do it this way, same thing, just a win. What if we sneak in with 7174? The problem is 7174 was the only card that didn't combo 5, right? So we can still win with this move. Crazy, right? But every card Piggy plays has to capture 5, and the combo from 5 flips everything. So pretty clearly here, Piggy can't block 6. But he can't block 6 for really cool reasons. There's this really nice setup in 7. Can he block 4? Well, instinctively, I mean, this is the way he has to do it, right? Because if he blocks 4 with something like this, Villalva again goes 9, and 7, 8, 3, 4 has all the squares. Elvaret is a miracle worker this game. Elvaret's a powerhouse. He has all the combos, and just so we can see it, flips. Let's make him flip everything. Flips everything. So the only move that makes any sense in 4 is here to not flip 5, but again, he'll be forced to flip 5 next turn. I think we can do the same thing. I think it's just the same thing we've seen every game. Because at some point, 5 flips. You have to flip 5. And it's so cool. I love games where there's a forced flip, where you cannot play around a card. And even though 7174 can for the moment, wherever it goes, Villalva forces Piggy's last move to be in 6 or 8, and that's game over. What if Piggy blocked 8? Well, any move in 8 is going to flip 5, so it shouldn't matter which. We should still have the same reply, and it should win. So any move loses to 7. And what that tells us is Piggy has to block 7. And that's what he does. Piggy blocks 7 here. And this is one of those things of once you start seeing that 7 always beats you, that 7 is the square they need to occupy, then you should be looking to play 7 yourself. And this is how kind of offbeat moves are often found. And here is late enough that maybe you just calculate out the game and find 7 that way. But if it was earlier in the game and you notice 7 keeps killing me, just sticking a card in 7 just to cut that square off from them later can be how these really creative, strange moves are found. So Piggy has to go 7. Which card goes in 7? Well, this one does the same thing as Villalva's 6955. So this looks absolutely terrible to me. I think this is the way to do it, because it doesn't matter if 7417 flips a card and doesn't flip 5, we still capture enough to win. So it's definitely not going to be that card. It has to be 8736 or 7174. And at this point, I think you probably know which one is the tie. Because we just need 7174 to be able to not flip 5. And we finally found a way to block 7, even create a threaten 4, because 7174 now has a plus, but we can avoid blocking 5. And the game finishes with Villalva goes in 4, Piggy must avoid the combo, and we have a tie. Really fascinating tie. Great game. Really neat, just the move in 9, kind of playing around that forced combo. Very creative. I think with playing in 1, you kind of have to have an idea like this in mind. I think it's pretty clear he did have 5-2, 5-2, and 9 in mind, because otherwise this position is just busted. You have to know, if they take that, they flipped 5, and I hit them with the setup, and I have good chances. So I think when Villalva made this move, he intended 5-2, 5-2, and 9 against basically anything. And that's fantastic. That's super cool. The question is, what about this move? It's kind of similar, right? For instance, if 7174 and 4, avoiding flipping 5, we hit them with 5-2, 5-2, and 9, and this again, this wins. I think this is the case against any move in 4. This is just going to look very similar to the other line, right? Anything that looks like this, everything goes at the end, right? And we're going to get these big wins, and it doesn't really matter where you go. So we have a very similar thing. Piggy can't go in 4 because you're going to hit him in 9. It should be no surprise to us. I mean, at this point, this seems like pretty straightforward to calculate. We've looked at so many lines. If they go in 6, we go in 9. They have to flip 5, we combo back. If they go in 8, we go in 9 probably, and we get the combo. I guess they can go in 8 with something like this, and then maybe... Well, we should still win in 9. 9 still works. It combos enough things. Anything in 8 is going to flip 5. So yeah, of course. I was thinking they could not flip 5 and then 7174 could have continued avoiding flipping 5. But of course, they have to flip 5 from 8. So the question here is, it's the same thing, right? There has to be a move in 9. anything not in 9 is definitely going to lose. Which card do we put in 9? It has to be something that doesn't let 7834 go off. What can we try? Now, we want to keep 7174 because it can potentially slide in 4 or 6 without flipping. So I think it has to be one of 6927 or 8736. 6927 here. But there's no captures. So if we just go 5252 here, either you have to capture giving me the combos, or if you avoid capturing, I win 6-4 anyway. Yeah. Does this not? Yep. AI confirms. This is a winning move. What about the other one, 8736? I kind of assume 5252 still works. I get to flip an extra card immediately. Looks good. And I win. Yeah. So 6955 with the same idea as Villalva's move is actually the forced win. And why is 6955 and 7 but 5252 not a win? Well, the response had to be 8736 here when Piggy could avoid in 6, right, as we saw in the game, could avoid flipping it, and 7834 didn't have the capture. The problem with any move, with the reason 7 wins but 9 didn't, is because there is no move Villalva can put in 9 himself where Piggy doesn't have the capture from 8. And because Piggy can't actually flip anything, that ability to flip one extra card for Villalva is what turns it into a 6-4 rather than a 5-5. So it would have been super cool if he found this move. I do not blame him for not finding it. This was still a brilliant game. 5252 and 9 is a great move. And just a great setup of playing 1 with the intent to play 9. I think he showed really cool synergies with this hand that were just not visually apparent. We did find them at the start, partially because I kind of thought they were there, but also because because we could look at the corners and see if they set things up. But a really brilliant way to set them up. I was supposed to read Villalva's commentary. He comments on this position. Piggy's turn, he found the tie with 8736 and 7. Elverette, which is a 7834, could combo the card in 5 from 6 and 8, but it was mine, so Piggy had to either block one of those spots or flip that card for the rest of the game. Fortunately for him, his 7174 worked fine, but if he used it right away to block 6, which we've looked at, sorry, keep putting in the wrong square, I would have gone with 6955 and 7, and then have another spot to combo the card in 5 with a plus, and that capture is forced. Yeah, so Villalva was very excited about this game. Piggy sent me a message, hey bud, here's a game I think is worth sharing. Mentioned, played really creatively, pretty crazy tie. Yeah, fascinating game. Really one of the fun games I've looked at. I'm really glad they both sent it to me, because this was a lot of fun to look over. Not one of those games where I regret a win not being played, because both moves are so creative and good, and the difference is really interesting to look at. And thanks to both of them for playing such a beautiful game. Cheers.